Good morning. Good morning. We got Danielle, Alex, Jay, Jonathan. Folks are coming in. Fantastic. We'll get cooking in just a moment. Welcome, everybody. This is a cool topic, I tell you. It's good to see you, Greg. Oh, not really seeing Greg. We're seeing an empty chair for Greg. Good to see you, Karen.
Good to be here.
Hey, Ryan. How are you, sir?
Hey, Dave. Doing well. Good to be here again.
Awesome. And we have Amber as our interpreter. Good to see you, Amber. We will get cooking in just a minute, I promise. It gives folks the time to get in. So, Ryan, where are you out of again?
I'm in Maryland.
Fantastic.
5-minute drive from DC.
Awesome. So where's everybody else? I'm in Maryland. You can put into the chat. You can pop. You can let us know where you're from. We always love to know where people are coming from. And let me get this so everybody can see. I'm from Woodstock, Maryland, outside of Ellicott City. Where are you from, Ryan?
He just said he's from Maryland.
Frederick.
Frederick.
45 minutes from DC.
45 minutes from DC. Gotcha. How about you, Karen? Are you in
I'm
DC?
right in DC. I'm in the heart of DC.
People need to stop moving here is my comment about Frederick.
And the Frederick's a nice place, man.
I agree. It's very nice.
You're trying to keep it nice. Keep us outsiders out. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, appreciate that, man. So how about you, Greg? Where are you out of?
I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I knew that. I did know that. I'm from Baltimore, near Baltimore, so that makes us arch enemies all the time. All right, so Alan's from Virginia. What do you say, Greg?
Yeah. We're still with the football team.
Yeah, there you go. That's all we got. So we beat each other up on football, but we like each other otherwise, pretty much, most of the time. So Alan's from Virginia. Alex, that's a cool way to spell Alex, by the way. From Colorado. Greg's from Pittsburgh. We already identified that. Joel from Eldersburg, Maryland. Not too far from us. That's right. Joel, I was up there the other day. So where's everybody else at? So pop that in the chat and we will get cooking in just a minute. I promise. We want to give other folks a chance to get here. We have over 50 people registered, which is great. We love the fact that you want to learn about this. And San Francisco Bay, that's the farthest away so far from Kim. Jessica's from Rockville. Karen West from Florida. Would that be Karen West from Key West, Florida? Kendrick from Indiana. Cameron from North Carolina. Love it. Bloomington, Minnesota. Clarksburg, West Virginia. We got Charlotte and Siobhan from Mississippi and Jonathan from Vancouver, Washington. That's about as far away as you can get, I think. Jonathan. Awesome. Well, welcome to everybody. We really appreciate you joining us. A great topic today. And we have folks from CSD here today, and we're going to explain what they are and who they are and what they do. But we've been talking about meeting DEIA requirements for the deaf community. We want to welcome all the different agencies that are here today. I'm telling you, it's a bunch that have signed up. We got folks from VA, HRSA, I saw, FAA, bunch of folks from FAA, including FAA, I think it's FAA for the civil rights side. So very interesting for you guys. Love to hear your comments on this as we do this. And this is how we operate. Love that you're doing it. You guys have joined us today. Ryan with CSD. We have Karen Peltz Strauss. I almost said Schultz. I'm sorry, Karen. And Greg Pollock. Say hey, everybody, to these folks. So it's good to see you guys. Quick disclaimer, this event's not endorsed. This comes from GSA, by the way, by any federal agency, and is provided for you, the audience, as informational purposes only. And participation in this briefing gives you the ability to participate because it's not an indication to endorsement to purchase from any vendor. It's great. So we appreciate you joining us. All right. So quick poll. Why are you guys here today? Are you deaf or hard of hearing to want to know about the new technology? How about you want to learn about new technologies that'll help? How about you're on the hot seat for DEIA? There's some folks here, I think, that are for that. How about hot seat for customer experience? Because we're actually talking about customer experience here. Just happens to be the deaf community for the customer experience. Or you want to hire and accommodate deaf employees. Very important, right, Greg? That is super important. Or my boss made me come. So there's going to be there's already one Weisenheimer at least. So while you're doing that, I will say that we love participation in this, and the fact that you can chat, you can raise your hand, you can do the Q&A. If you are deaf and you would like to communicate, we will even promote you to a co-host so that you can communicate directly with the folks here if you would like to. And we will have some session handouts. I'm waiting for one handout. I'm going to pop that into the handout folder, and I'm going to share that in a few minutes, but it'll include the presentation. We do have presidential memoranda, right, Karen? We're going to be talking about some of the initiatives that are coming down. Some of these are actually still in process with Congress. Is that right, Karen?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. And we'll talk about the OPM's DEIA strategic plan and guidance and how that you can incorporate that to serve the deaf community. Today, we'll get into some introductions. I'll introduce these folks, CSD. We'll talk about some of the federal initiatives and get an understanding of the gap that we're talking about here. We, as folks in the hearing community, we don't live the same way, and it's going to be interesting to see as Greg and Ryan share the why this is so important to improve the customer experience, especially on behalf of the deaf community and hard of hearing community. And some of the new technologies that are there. We're going to show you one of those and some of the next steps that you can participate in. I'm going to end this poll in another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Any last minute stragglers for the poll? All right, let's take a look, Greg and Ryan. Here's what we got. We have a couple folks that are from the deaf and hard of hearing community. We love to hear for you to communicate with us here today. And I love the fact that a lot of folks want to learn and want to accommodate deaf employees. That's exciting. Wouldn't you say, Greg?
Yes, I would.
Yeah. How about you, Ryan? What do you think of that poll?
I love that people are interested in new technology for a deaf community, and not just that they have to be here.
Love it.
Greg says, I think that, oh, you moved the poll.
I moved the poll. I can do it again. Watch this.
Stop. No. Greg, Dave keeps moving the poll, and every time it covers your signing, so I can't interpret. That's why I said stop, Dave. Okay. Greg said, I love this because we deaf and hard of hearing people are having an opportunity to advance our communication access, which we haven't been able to do for the last 20 years. So I'm happy to be able to share our experience and how it is that we navigate things. And I'm happy that there are people out there that are willing to make this change so that we can have a better experience and we can navigate the nuances of society and government. Love
that. Now I'm going to take this away.
Okay.
So they can't see it anymore, and I'll stop messing up Amber. And I think this is a really interesting thing, right? Because here we are, all of us embracing a new technology, being Zoom, relatively new, right? And just that alone, where the poll pops up, creates a problem for me to be able to communicate with others here on this call. I think that's a great example of things that we don't have to deal with in the hearing community. Am I right, Ryan? Is that a reasonable assessment?
Yep.
Yep.
There are a lot of gaps that we'll get into momentarily.
Yeah. Love that. So tell us a little bit about CSD and how you guys got started.
So if you want the real in-depth history, you probably should buy the book Behind Karen. That will give you the real nitty-gritty. But as far as just kind of a bit of a synopsis, before 1975, deaf and hard of hearing people couldn't make phone calls. They couldn't use the phone. Then there was a great invention that came about. There was the TTY. But prior to that, they had to rely on neighbors, siblings, relatives, somebody else to make a phone call for them, to order pizza, to call a friend, to ask somebody. You had to ask somebody to make the call. Then, roughly 1975, the TTY was born. And you may or may not know what the TTY is, but it's the teletype writer. And what it did was really transform how deaf people communicate with each other. It made it so that they could communicate back and forth with somebody by putting the phone receiver onto this typing machine that would make beeps, and it would be a series of beeps that would turn into letters that then would translate and into text that the deaf person could read. The challenge was, for us to be able to communicate with somebody, the other person had to have a TTY as well. And obviously, everybody didn't have a TTY in 1975. So this guy in a closet in South Dakota decided he was going to hire some hearing people to sit in front of a TTY, in front of that keyboard, to be able to make calls for deaf and hard of hearing people who were calling in. Brilliant idea, especially for the time. But at the time, also, there was no Americans with Disabilities Act. There was no law enacted to support deaf and hard of hearing people. They had to rely on grants, and they got a grant from South Dakota to build this relay service model that really worked for South Dakota residents. So that's how CSD was born. And in 1990, when the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed, Congress told the FCC, set up a fund, make this fund available to support with communication access for people who wanted to read the law. Title IV of the ADA specifically talks about communication access. And it says in the law, communication access should be provided to the maximum extent possible in the most efficient means of communication. So what that means is that deaf and hard of hearing people deserve the right to communicate with anyone. So the FCC asked CSD to set up relay centers throughout the United States. And CSD expanded relay services. We had relay centers throughout the United States, and we had a lot of hearing people sitting in front of those TTY machines to make calls for deaf and hard of hearing individuals for them and to them. And this, yeah, like I said, for and to deaf people, and connecting to hearing people. And it made it so that they were able to communicate with the rest of the country. Now, in the early 2000s, video technology became possible. Webcams were popular, and CSD partnered with a small company named Sprint. And Sprint actually helped us set up what is called video relays, the video phone, actually. And that let CSD and deaf people, instead of hiring somebody to type, they hired somebody to sign. So they sat in front of a video phone and got calls from deaf and hard of hearing people, making calls to hearing people. But now instead of a person typing, they had an interpreter, and the video relay service was formed. And that's been the standard of communication access for the last 20 years now. Now, part of the challenge that CSC has been trying to figure out is, in the spirit of the ADA, how do we make communication access more efficient than it is currently? Because right now, video relay service requires that all interpreters that we use are first come, first serve. So every time I make a call, an interpreter pops up on my screen. Most of the time, I've never seen this interpreter in my life. And when I make that call, the interpreter then connects with the hearing person and makes a call for me. The challenge is multifaceted, but we look at the interpreter as almost another step in the communication process. It's still not equal to what a hearing person can do as a point-to-point call. So we wanted to figure out a way to eliminate the middleman being the interpreter. And so we set up what is called direct video communication, direct video calling. And this allows deaf people to be hired inside of organizations to support the deaf customers that are calling in, instead of relying on an interpreter, the third party. So CSC has been in the business working with the FCC to come up with solutions to communication barriers for 50 years now. So we are thrilled to continue on with that mission and to continue the work of making communication access more efficient, more streamlined, and making these things legal.
Can I interrupt for just 1 second, Amber? Because here's another example of how this is affecting us. Christy and Cameron are saying they can't see Greg when they're talking on Zoom because the interpreter is the one that's speaking, and that creates what they get to be able to see. I think I'm gonna work to figure this out while we're doing this, because I remember this being an issue. You have a?
I fixed it, and
I thought it was a grid view thing, but I'm not sure that we see the same thing they do.
yep, I fixed it.
You fixed it?
Fixed it, yes, thank you. Continue on.
Amber is a rock star.
And Ryan says she's our MVP for the day.
That's a fact.
Yeah, Christy says much better.
And guess what? Another great example of the stuff that we don't have to deal with, that Greg and Ryan and anybody else in the deaf community have to deal with. Am I right? Great example.
Yeah.
There he is. All right, Greg, now everybody can see you. They probably want to turn the camera off. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
What? Greg says, so that was basically the synopsis, the history of CSD. We're really just trying to figure out different ways to continue to grow in the spirit of the ADA. I know that Karen's going to cover that in a little bit more depth, but the ADA really, the reasoning behind the ADA, yeah, we're trying to carry out that spirit. And CSC is on the GSA schedule. That is why we're here, to support organizations that want to make sure that communication access is more streamlined for deaf and hard of hearing people.
And that's fantastic. And we appreciate it. And I'm sorry I interrupted you on that. It is one of those things that, again, I think it's really good for us that aren't thinking about the deaf community every day, as we wouldn't, to take a few minutes and see the impact of the customer experience for that. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. Been doing it for a long time. Long time. So these guys know how that works. Let's talk about how this affects America. Can we, is this you, Karen, that wants to talk about the cross section of the United States? Who's going to talk this one?
I think it's maybe Ryan, is that right?
The Ryan? Okay.
It is. Yeah. Well, I could talk about CSD. We are heavily invested in making sure that we are diverse with not just deaf individuals, but all the cross sections of the United States. You know, it's interesting because we get different perspectives as deaf people, but deaf people, we're a diverse community as well.
Right on.
And interestingly enough, what's accessible to me isn't always accessible, let's say, to Greg, even though both of us are deaf. We have a different lens on accessibility. Greg said, and just to chime in on that, sorry, the interpreter messed that up. Hearing and other disabilities categories, people can join this disability category at any time. You aren't born into it necessarily.
Gotcha. So as we continue down the road to how we're managing this, what is your role with DEIA and the customer experience? You could be in HR, you could be in the web systems, because there's different things that 508 compliance demands from you in the web systems. Maybe you're in a call center, or you're working in serving customers and constituents. And some folks are here for compliance reasons, right? And so you can let us know where you are in the food chain, because that'll help understand the kind of environment. A lot of folks from HR here. This is great. And while they're doing that, I'm going to introduce you to Karen. Karen's been around in this industry for a while and working on the Hill, right, Karen? So you know a lot about the federal initiatives. Give us a high-level overview of your experience and what you see.
Okay, well, I've actually been working mostly in the federal agencies. I do work from the outside. I haven't actually worked on the Hill. But I'm going to pick up where Greg left off, because Greg gave you a really great history of how the deaf community began communicating by telephone using TTYs, which are basically like a keyboard. That's all it is. And then moved on to relay services with a person in between who used to speak what an individual typed on a TTY and then type back what the other person responded, and then moved on to video relay services, where the sign language interpreter would speak what the sign language user signed to the hearing person and sign back what the hearing person said. And this has been done, and it continues to be done under the FCC's Telecommunications Relay Service Program. I used to work at the FCC. I helped implement this program and put it into effect. So this is great. I mean, video relay service was a huge improvement over TTYs. TTYs are very slow, and it's much faster to sign. You can show emotions, etc. But the problem with VRS is that it still relies on a third person to complete the call. There's still somebody in the middle. So as Greg said, when he gets on a call, he doesn't know that interpreter doesn't know him. Every single deaf person has different signing styles. Every single interpreter has different capabilities. And so there's a greater opportunity for misinformation, for miscommunication and errors. It's also not as fast as direct communication. If Greg were to talk to me directly, I do sign. So when we communicate directly, then I don't have to worry about my speech being misinterpreted by the interpreter. He doesn't have to worry about the same thing. And of course, it's more private. And you'll hear a little bit more about all the advantages of direct communication. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about direct video communication in call centers, where it allows a person like Greg and Ryan to communicate directly with a customer service representative who has been trained by the government agency to provide call center assistance. Direct communication, just like you and I have, those of you who are hearing and can hear me directly. What's important to understand here is that sign language is not English. It is a separate language. It has a complex grammatical structure that is linguistically and culturally very different from English. And so the opportunity for error increases when you do use an interpreter in the middle. Because DVC takes place between two people who both sign. For the first time, it allows ASL users to truly have the same experience as hearing people when they're trying to get assistance from government agencies. As I mentioned, I used to work at the Federal Communications Commission. The FCC does have its own ASL DVC line. We founded it back in around 2014 or 2015. We found immediately a 42% reduction in the length of calls handled over DVC versus VRS. So we decided we wanted to encourage the use of DVC amongst federal agencies. The FCC now has something called the Accessible Communication for Everyone Open Platform. It's an open source video calling platform that automatically routes ASL users directly to ASL fluent customer service agents at call centers at no cost to the federal agencies. They will give you this technology for free. They also engaged in an extensive outreach program amongst federal agencies. And they also have a certification program where they approve qualified entities to access what's called the Video Relay Service Numbering Database to be able to reach consumers to provide DVC. And these certified entities are called Qualified Direct Video Entities. CSD is one of only 3 entities or organizations that has such certification and received that a while back. The FCC is also continuing to explore the benefits of DVC. It has its own disability advisory committee. And last summer, that committee was tasked with giving recommendations on how the FCC can foster and encourage DVC, and listed a very long list of advantages. And if any of you are interested, there's a report that you can read from the Disability Advisory Committee. What we found when I was at the commission is that millions of VRS, Video Relay Service minutes, each year are directed to federal government agencies with very active and publicly facing call centers like OPM, Medicaid and Medicare centers, HHS, SSA, IRS. And what we have now is, as was mentioned earlier today, there are actually executive orders that fit right in with DVC. One of them is on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the federal workforce. It is EO Executive Order 14035, and it basically says that the federal government should be a model of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and includes hiring more diversity in the workforce. So this DVC is an easy way to do that because you would be hiring deaf people and expanding the number of people within the federal government that are in fact diverse. The second executive order is EO 14058, and that is transforming federal customer experience and service delivery to rebuild trust in government. And it says, government, you really should be, again, a model. You should work to deliver services more equitably and effectively, especially for those who have been historically underserved, which the deaf community definitely falls into. And you should be using modern technologies to implement services that are simple to use, accessible, equitable, and responsive for all people of the United States. So there's a whole lot that's already being done that supports and promotes DVC by the federal agencies, by federal government. But there's even more. So one of the things that was mentioned is that I do work with, not on the Hill, but with the Hill. And one of the things that we're doing is we have drafted a law. I've done that with various deaf organizations, called the Communications, Video, and Technology Accessibility Act, which updates many of the requirements or safeguards for accessibility that now exist, and would actually define direct video communication as a form of relay service that would be eligible for support, monetary support. That is from a special fund that the FCC has. That act is still pending. Our Congress is a little bit slow these days to get things done, so I don't know when that will be enacted. Don't wait. That's all I can say. Don't wait. There's no reason to wait. This is a phenomenal service. It'll bring about equitable communication access for the deaf community. And with technology here already, there's no reason to wait if you're a federal agency.
And I just put those in for you, Karen. For everybody else, put the documents in, includes access to EO 14035 and 058. That way you guys can take a look at that at your convenience. There's also the presentation itself and additional information that Karen has for us. So that's a great overview. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is that deaf people do everything else. They're taking advantage of park service. They're flying. They're driving, right, Ryan? And you're paying taxes too. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, paying taxes too. Yeah.
Yeah, especially after last week. So as we help us understand what it is like and the gap that we have that we don't think about as hearing people every day.
Sure. It's interesting because oftentimes people look at deaf people as another disability, or we're in the other disability umbrella, right? Because being deaf is unique. It's more of a communication disability than it is a physical disability. For example, Greg and I actually just recently went to California, and we were at the CSUN Assistive Technology Conference. This was in March. And, when I went into the hotel, I checked in, got my hotel key, and went to the elevator and found my floor. And it's interesting because there was a blind guy that was going to the conference too. He came into the elevator. He was struggling to get into the elevator. The elevator closed on him before he could actually get to the elevator. He had to take a step back, get back to the button to press that again. I'm standing behind him feeling bad in the elevator. I'm like, our rooms were on different parts of the hotel. Anyway, same night, we're at the opening reception. And I come into this huge ballroom that is full of hearing people. There's a few deaf people there. And I stand there and look for an interpreter to be able to start conversing with people. Meanwhile, the blind guy who was struggling to get into the elevator is in the middle of the room talking with everyone. So, I'm standing in the corner waiting for an interpreter so that I can finally start communicating with people. So our disabilities just manifest so incredibly different. And I think that just shows you that it's not a one size fits all.
And so
I guess my point with that is even also with the airport, like I drive to the airport, I fly, I get myself there on my own, I get through TSA on my own, I get to the gate myself without any assistance from anyone. The only time my disability shows up is when people are trying to talk to me or communicate something. At those different points, that's when I need assistance, right? And we like to break down those gaps at those kind of things. That's where CSD comes into play.
And I think that the imagery of you walking into that crowded room, I think we all can appreciate that. As hearing people, we walk into that crowded room and we might be wallflowers anyway. I don't want to mingle, but that's what you're there for. And literally, Ryan nor Greg could engage with anybody in that room because of that communication disability. I like the way you put that too, because it's not, you do everything else. You're riding, like you said, you're riding bikes, you're flying on planes, you're going to hotel rooms. Everything else works fine. So thanks for that update. Now, I want to ask everybody here, how would you feel if every time you needed to talk to somebody for just your fundamental Social Security, your banking information, health issues, even worse, right? How many people want to tell a third person about that semi-sensitive, sometimes extremely sensitive health issue? And this is what you have to live with every day, right? Right, Ryan? And some of this we've already talked about, right? Do you even know? I mean, you know Amber a little bit better because she's one of your go-to people, right?
Greg says, yeah, we literally hired Amber for this. We chose her, and we prepared her prior to, and this is why she can understand us so much better. So basically, she's been trained to support us here at CSD, and she's fantastic at that. But that's not true for regular telecommunication services. As Karen and I mentioned earlier, the FCC requires that telecommunication access be first come, first serve, which means we have interpreters who are in a call center. They are waiting to take calls, and they accept calls in their first come, first serve basis. And they've never met the person before. And they are typically provided by one of 4 third-party companies. And these third-party companies are owned by like venture capitalists or private entities. And those agencies provide services for all of the different calls. My calls to the IRS, my calls to the Social Security Administration, my calls to the bank. Actually, earlier I had, April 15th taxes were due. I had to call to the state of Pennsylvania, and it was kind of a nightmare because I called and I got an interpreter who I've never seen before on my screen, and he was a little bit awkward, but I'm like, okay, let's go. I need to make this call. So I call, and the first question that comes up is it's an IVR asking what my social security number is. So I'm like, okay, actually, let me dial this in myself instead of the interpreter. So I press the buttons on my phone to do it, and the system says your number was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that correct? I'm like, so I watched this guy I've never seen before signing my social security number back to me. I'm like, yes, that was right, but this is uncomfortable. And then there was a glitch in the system that asked me to repeat my social security number. So I punch it in again. And then the system finally asks me again to confirm and then repeat. Interpreter signing my social security number. And it feels really awkward at this point because I'm like, you asked me, if you're asking me for my social security number, come on, man, buy me a drink first. But really, and like, once I finally got connected to an agent, then the agent asks me to confirm my social security number. So at this point, I've given my social security number for a 3rd time. At this point, I swear this interpreter could almost have it memorized. And then I have to answer my security questions. I'm giving him my whole life away, really, to this random interpreter. He's got my whole background, all of it. It's an awkward experience for me, but it's not unusual for deaf and hard of hearing people. We are all forced to give out our personal identifying information to a third party. I'll give Karen a minute to add something. Or Dave, were you gonna say?
As you see from the side, the last item is limited talent pool. Not only is there a problem because you don't know what skills your interpreter have and whether they'll understand you, but there's a wait. When you call a video relay service, you have to wait, and we don't have to wait. We may have to wait for if it's ringing, but eventually somebody's gonna that wait everybody has. Let's say if I'm calling the Social Security Administration, for example, but you have to actually wait for an interpreter to get online, and interpreters are in high demand. It's very hard. It's sometimes you have to wait up to 2 minutes for an interpreter. So that's yet another reason that video relay is not as effective as direct access.
And sometimes they're not even available because we wound up doing the prep for this and Amber wasn't here. Let's just say that. And then we had to work through someone that Greg didn't know or Ryan didn't know. And as a result of that, we had to actually reschedule because the interpreter wasn't available or didn't post when they were supposed to. So there's a lot that let me say this. Bad customer experience is not just limited to the deaf community. Can I get an amen for that from everybody here? However, we don't have to add additional problems to the deaf community. Do we really need to?
That's exactly right. I mean, it's kind of insult upon injury. And I can tell you as a hearing person who signs, I mean, there are some interpreters, I know we're embarrassing you, Amber, over and over again, that are excellent. And we use Amber all the time and with my organizations. But as a hearing person who signs, I watch the mistakes happen very often when I'm in an interpreter's presence, because I know they're not interpreting exactly what the deaf person is saying. And that is really, really hard. I see the mistakes, and that's why direct communication is so important.
So Loria Jackson raised her hand, or she might be just saying, yes, that's awesome. Or she might have something to, you have something to say, Loria?
No, I don't.
You just want to say that you agreed, right?
I agree.
You agree. And customer service, hey, we all need better customer service. And I'm not just busting on the folks that are responsible here, right? I'm not saying it's your fault, Loria, right?
Right.
So
I don't know how to change my thing.
I got you. I got you
Okay.
lowered hand. You're
Okay.
good. Thanks. Great to meet you, by the way. So that is an indication of
Okay.
how we will engage with you, right, Loria?
You're right. I don't know how to take my phone, my
I
mute
got you.
off.
I got you covered. Well, it's great to meet. So this is what's really interesting. 93% of the deaf community went direct connection. I don't know about you, but we can't agree on 93% of anything in this country. Nobody. We can't agree with anything. So that is an amazing statistic. And do we all agree?
Like 51-49, right?
Yeah, right. That's where we are right now, all the time.
And to be honest, I was talking to Greg and Ryan earlier, and I said, I don't think it's 93. I actually think it's 100%. And I think the other 7% didn't understand the question. Because there's no way that anybody would choose to talk with a third person present if they could have a direct connection. So it was 93% of the community that got the question right.
That's right. So, and we all agree that the deaf and hard of hearing deserve equal access. I don't think anybody doesn't agree with that. Now, delivering on that is another thing. And we all are experiencing new technologies. We're in it right this minute. Thanks to COVID, this got accelerated. Don't really want to thank COVID for anything, actually, but
Ryan, I just wanted to chime in here, Dave.
Yep.
I just want to emphasize the third bullet point. The technology is evolving. It evolves over time, and especially in the last like 5 or 10 years. You know, Greg and I met with a contact center in Austin this January, and we were talking. They're talking about AI, and everybody's celebrating how much it's improved the call center experience. But we asked them, what about deaf people? We're still using technology from the early 2000s, video relay service, right? And everybody's like celebrating that that's so great, but it's not. So all of like the other general technology is coming up with these AI advanced features, but they're leaving us behind. So I think that government and call centers in general need to think about us in terms of accessing new technology as well, and not leaving us behind in the early 2000s.
Can I add to that and make one correction, Ryan? The federal agencies are using technology from 1968. I mean, the TTY was created in 1968, and many federal and any federal agency that doesn't have direct communication via video is still using a TTY or pretending to use a TTY and having it sit on somebody's desk, gathering dust, and still giving out the TTY number. And that is from 1968. And hardly anybody in the country is even using that technology anymore. But that is what many federal agencies still list as their form of access for the deaf community. That
it does. It shows up on the websites too.
Makes me crazy, because I started in this field in 1984, And I've watched all the technology progress, and it's a hard pill to swallow that agencies are still relying on that technology.
And I think in combination of that, that bullet point 4 is training customer service. And how about this? How about you train deaf and hard of hearing folks to communicate with deaf and hard of hearing folks? That's seems revolutionary but simple, right? And you can do this now, right? You mentioned it, Karen. You don't have to wait till the act is passed. You can start doing it. So I'm going to ask this next part of the poll, which is, what are you using? So we mentioned TTY, right? We know that TTY is what's out there for most. Other folks, automated telephone systems that do, I don't know how that works with you, Greg and Ryan. Video reading services, chat and text. And that was the other thing. AI, you mentioned AI. Everybody's like, well, now you got AI. We can do this, and then you can read it, and everything's good. Because AI would never make a mistake, right? Computers never make a mistake. So what are you using? Oh, let's see what we got. We got some folks still using TTY, automated telephone. There you go.
Maybe in 50 years, AI will never make a mistake. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm counting on that. Everybody's seen the Terminator. Just saying. We talk about AI a lot here on GovBrief. I'll tell you that. It's crazy with the thing. So, all right, we'll leave that open for another 5, 4, 3. We want to make sure everybody gets a chance to be able to participate. But we do want to make sure we rock and roll, because the next part is really important. All right, here's what we got, guys. You want to see it? Across the board. The one that wins is video relay service, video conferencing. So that's at least close, getting closer, right? And 1 uses DVC. There you go. Fantastic. Awesome. So let's compare these technologies. Who wants to take this one?
Ryan says, today we oftentimes talk about video relay service. And there are different channels to communicate with the government, or really any corporation. And oftentimes companies or government agencies will say, oh, we have options for you, like are up on the screen. Yeah, you can get a hold of us any of these ways. But deaf people want a human-centered one rather than relying on a chatbot or an automated system. We want to talk with an actual representative, somebody who's actually representing your company. I'm going to talk more in the next slide about that.
I got you. And so a lot of times you're looking at ancient history in technology, right? So we're actually going to show an example of this so that you can see and imagine you being able to do this, as opposed to, no offense to Amber, she's awesome, or anybody that's like Amber, but let's take a look. I'm gonna, 1 second. Oh, I'm doing something wrong. I need to go. I'm gonna do this. Open this up. My apologies. I'm gonna go to the handouts, because this is here for us, and we're gonna play it from the handout instead.
Hello, I'm Jeff with Gov. How can I help you? I need assistance with making sure my tax return was submitted right. I'm happy to help you with this. First, can I have your name, please? Sure, my name is Dre Riley. Thank you, Dre. Can you share your social security number, please? My social security number is... Thank you. I see your social security number and name in our system. Do you have a state-issued ID, such as a current driver's license? I do. Great. Can you show me your ID on camera so I can verify your identity, please? Thank you. Thank you. I've confirmed your identity in the system. Now, how can I help you with your tax return? I submitted my tax return 2 weeks ago, but I have not received my refund. I'm nervous that it didn't go through. I see. Let me investigate this. It seems your tax return has been received. It should be processed any day now. Can you confirm how you requested the refund? Yes, I asked for a check to be mailed to me. My address is the same as showed on the driver's license. I see that on your file. The check should be on its way to you as the next batch is being sent out next week. I recommend calling back in a week, or two if it doesn't arrive by then. Okay, I'll do that. I've made a note that you've called to check in on the refund. As a courtesy, I'm going to send you a confirmation email of your tax filing. You'll receive an email confirmation shortly. First, can you verify your email address? Sure. It's dreriley22@email.com. Thank you. That matches what we have on file. The email should arrive in your inbox any second now. Is there anything else I can do for you? No, that's all. Thank you, and I appreciate it. You have a great day.
So that's an example of what you guys do every day, right?
Yep, it is. I was just about to say that is direct video calling in action. A deaf person made the call and they have a deaf trained representative who is taking the call. That deaf trained representative has access to the caller's file. So they're able to confirm their questions and answer all of their questions without any interpreter involved, thus creating an equitable experience for the deaf person calling. It's an A and B conversation without any C third-party person involved.
And so when we think about this, you're talking about you can hire, first of all, hiring deaf people, great. Training deaf people to service within your organization, great idea. It benefits multiple ways, right? And the bottom line, though, is lower call times as much as 42% because you don't have to have the third party, right? That's the whole thing. Am I right?
Yep. And it mitigates risk. It really does. Because we don't have to worry about a third person being involved. And what are they doing with my information after the call? It is between the deaf caller and the deaf trained representative. And it also, the agency is able to monitor that their employee, because the interpreters aren't their employees. So if I call, and actually on the IRS website, it says very clearly on the website that the interpreters have no ability to say if it's a scam call. The IRS, it is not their role to tell a deaf person if it's a scam call or not.
What?
So they just interpret. So the deaf person's just left to sit there to their own devices. Is this a scam or is this actually the IRS calling me? I can't tell. So yeah, it's so much easier solved if you just hire deaf people and train deaf people to work in your agency and take your calls.
Wow.
Yeah, and the best part about this DVC is that we can use your same phone number that you already have. So let's say a deaf person gets a interpreter clarification, a letter from the IRS that says, call us at this phone number. We can register that phone number in the FCC's ITRS database that makes it so that when a deaf person calls a video through their video phone, it flags them and it would directly route to our ASL call center. But it doesn't have any impact on a hearing person making that call. A hearing person wouldn't get flagged. They would just connect to our current English-speaking agents. It only improves the call experience for a deaf person using a video phone. So you don't have to have 2 separate phone numbers. Deaf people, please call this separate phone number. You don't have to do that.
That is awesome. I had never gave that any thought. Well, it's a good thing people aren't scamming deaf people then, right? Is that what we're hearing? People, you got no risk. That's
Yeah. Great.
wow.
Not only that, Dave, but like, why would you use a untrained interpreter to be making these calls? Because you wouldn't let untrained representatives represent your organization, right? So that's kind of like the double standard of you're willing to allow this untrained interpreter represent your organization and be the communication facilitator for your hired representatives, but really they're the one who is representing your organization.
Wow. So this always amazes me because you are just pointing out how things just don't work quite right. And we want, I think everybody wants to help, right? The FCC even talks about it here, the benefits of DVC, right? And Karen, you know more about this because this is what you're working on, right?
Yeah, I mean, these are the benefits that I mentioned before: accuracy, privacy, efficiency. You know, if a third person's on the line and there's miscommunication, that's going to take a lot of time for the government as well. Not only the deaf person, the government agency is going to have to call back. There's going to be many more, or somebody's going to need to make additional calls to get clarity. And people that have used CSD service or any direct video service are thrilled and amazed at how fast the call goes when it's direct. The one thing that we touched on a little bit, are career opportunities and making sure that you hire people who are deaf and satisfying DEIA objectives, for example. So yeah, these are just generally the benefits that we've talked about, and they've been proven over and over again.
And there's an agency out there that has extra budget. So cost savings, the challenges of errors that happen that you were talking about, just incredible. And I really appreciate that. So the cool thing I think that you said, Karen, and everybody's kind of reverberating with is this. You can start today. You don't have to wait. You can actually start getting this up and running and even testing it out. So that's, engage your DEI CX team. They're the ones that are going to help you through this process. There's a lot involved with that. Review your processes for enhancing the deaf customer experience and leveraging the experience of folks like CSD. They're here. They know a lot about this. So they're definitely there. We do have folks that have a hard stop in just a couple of minutes. First of all, there is a hearing gap. Everybody agree with that now? Now we defined it. Let's get this working within your agency. Help your agency meet the needs. CSD is one of the folks that can do it. Talk with them. They'll even help you out if you want different options and see what else is out there. You can make a difference. And if you want to continue the communication, you can do that by answering this next question. Hey, you want to try it? You want to try DVC? You want to participate in a pilot? Because I do believe you guys can do that. And we do want to get you guys out of here. I know the interpreter has a hard stop. This is another issue that happens with the deaf community is Amber cannot sit there all day long and have her fingers flying. That's one of the problems, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, you don't have to purchase from any vendor. However, you can if you want to, because they're on GSA schedule. And so please, please, please engage these folks and learn some more about how they can help. You will get a follow-up email with the session docs, one-on-one meeting requests you can talk with Ryan, you can talk with Greg, both, if you'd like to. And so we do get everybody out of here. We will answer questions, but you have to do it in the next minute and 30 seconds. Otherwise, Amber is going to roll. So we really want to thank you guys. Sorry for the bums rush at the end, but super info.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
And Brian says, thanks so much. Thank you all for coming.
Very much. That's what thank you is, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. How do you say awesome?
There you
Like
go.
that? Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. At least I learned a little sign language today. People were saying that was good stuff. All right, guys, we'll get you out of here in just a minute. Great stuff, Brian, Greg, Karen, awesome. Thank you for doing what you're doing to help the deaf community communicate and helping us, hearing people, understand how we can help you.
Thank you.
Thank you.